21. Let the record show that all the city council members are present. We would excuse Mayor Searle tonight. We also have members of the city staff as well as members of the public. I've asked our city recorder, Michelle Maragoni, to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now have a moment of silence. We'd ask that with Veterans Day coming up, you remember the veterans here in Riverdale, those that have served and are serving, also those throughout our nation or throughout the world that are serving to protect the freedoms that we all enjoy. We also ask that you keep the City Council in mind as we make decisions tonight that affect the residents here. So we'll start with a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now have a time for public comment. That's an opportunity for people to address the City Council regarding concerns or ideas. No action will be taken on these comments. We ask that you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to presentations and reports. There will be no mayor's report tonight. Are there any city council members that want to report on any of their assignments? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the city administrator report. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. It's no secret that we're in a real crisis.
Is his microphone on? I don't think his mic's on.
We're in a real mess right now with retaining our employees, and for various reasons, Riverdale seems to have the target on their back. And part of that's our system that's set up, but we take pride in that, and we get good quality employees because of that. And so, but they're coming at us. I know of 2 different departments, police departments in particular, who have changed their policies just recently, and one of the ones they're pointing fingers at is us because they know they got to compete with us. And so seeing all this, and there's numerous articles that have been coming out, and even for a couple years now we've had to compete with Salt Lake, and like Salt Lake and Ogden and those kind of places can give such huge raises, and we just can't go there. But we lose employees, and here just a few months ago we found ourselves in a situation where we lost 2 police officers and had a couple others right on the back burners. And so Mayor Searle and Bill Kobabe at that time sat down and met with the department heads, and they talked about some of the things and some options they could do. And one of the things they came up with is maybe looking at some possible step increases for some of these guys just to try and buy some time, because ultimately we've got to come back to you guys, but it's probably more of a budget item. So as a stopgap measure, at that time they made the decision that they would bump some of these guys up in steps, which is going to give them a little bit of an increase so long as they could fit it into their budget. So the department heads sat down, they looked at it, they moved some things around to try and compensate for that, and that was implemented. And it was never reported back to you guys. And so when Cody and Stacy came to me and I went to Braden, I said, "Are you guys aware of this?" Because I didn't remember it ever coming up in a meeting. And apparently it was supposed to be brought up. Bill was going to bring it in, and then all that stuff happened, and so it just never got done. But we were trying to save guys, and it's not just our police officers, our building inspector. Mike knows this one well. They're coming after him hard. And so to compete, we had to do something, and the only options we could see that was within our authority was to look at some step increases, because in a sense they get raises that way, as long as it fit in the budget. We didn't have to bring it back for amendments, and so that was what was happening. That's what happened, and that's what we did. But I wanted you guys to be aware of that, because if you heard something or knew something about it, you wouldn't know anything, and I wanted to make sure you were informed. And That's what we did, and it's implemented, and we've saved our officers, and we've saved Woody, and there were some public works guys as well. We ended up doing it out there a little bit, but it all went to the lower levels. We didn't go in the police department. It's not in any of the upper guys. It was just the lower guys to try and keep them here and save our officers. So I don't know if you have more questions about that or you want to ask me anything. And Scott's here. He can kind of explain the situation. I mean, it's just, and our survey will take care of that eventually, but it was just, we needed to move now. I mean, he lost 20, or what is it, 10%? You lose 2 guys of his whole department. And we're just not even finding guys to replace him. And so we had to do something. We just felt we didn't have any choices. And if we lose Woody, you can't find another inspector right now. I mean, that turned in a nightmare for us. I don't know what we'd do, to be honest with you. Every city around here is looking for him. And so it was just some things that they felt at the time that they needed to do, and I can see why they did it. But I wanted you guys to be aware of it. I don't want you to be surprised by that. So that's why I asked if I could put this on and just explain that to you so you were aware of that. But it's worked. But it's a Band-Aid. I'm going to be honest with you. We will be coming back budget time because we got to do something. I mean, it's getting tough. And I know the very first city administrators meeting that I went to, South Ogden got up there and was bragging about their new system and all that kind of stuff and their pay scale for their police officers. So as soon as I got back here, I told Stacy, go look at that, find out how it's different and stuff. And she looks at it and it was basically ours, but they had just copied it. But Ogden City has jumped up above that. And so that's going to be hard to compete. And everybody's been doing it. Weaver County just gave across the board $2 an hour raises for everybody, not just their sheriff's officers. So it's tough. But like I said, I think our survey and I think our system works. But man, the timing of this has just been horrible. So we've just been juggling and doing what we can do, just trying to keep our guys here. We have really good guys. I know I've said that a million times, and department heads are phenomenal. They really are. And I know Scott's sweating it out because you can't just shift around that kind of money that easily, you know, and expect to survive. But they're going to have to go out without in some other areas until next year at this point. But so it will be coming back. Come budget time, we'll look at some stuff. But I just wanted you to be aware of it. That's what happened, and it's in place, and we're trying to save. I mean, I don't know that it affects us greatly other than, yeah, it's going to be, you know, in the long run, it'll be more money, but it also eliminates some steps that, and a lot of these guys will reach their maximum sooner than they probably would have. So it's kind of a win and a loss both for us. But overall, I think we've got to keep officers because we just can't find them. It is tough. It's a battle.
Counselor Stevens.
Are we full manning with the police department? We've got all our FYs. Okay. In previous conversations, you had mentioned that your tenure with Riverdale started as a part-time PD, and is that something we can now? Chief uses part-time. No.
Used to.
No, I don't answer that.
No, well, the point of it is what I'm getting to is if, instead of bringing in somebody as full time, can you transition a person as bring them on part time, you know, where they're working their other gig or something? I don't know if that's feasible to even, but then again, we're talking manning shortages versus budget shortages, and I don't know if we are using. Because a month ago you mentioned that our full-time support was under what were authorized, and so if we're using that budget to pay for the step increases, you know, as opposed to, I don't know, is that
when I use that number, that's citywide, so it may not apply. These departments don't necessarily mean that, and it's still coming out of that same budget. So Scott's budget's not going to be any different.
Okay.
So he's still there. It's just he's had to rob Peter to pay Paul to cover this. So, but Scott could explain to you on the issue with full-time.
And I'm just going to tell you, it could be difficult for me to make budget this year. That was a significant amount of money to try and absorb. So come May, I may be in here saying, boy, I'm not going to make it. Just depends. I'm doing everything I can to try and make it within the budget. That wasn't my goal. That wasn't really what I wanted at the time, but it was a good Band-Aid for the moment to try and keep some people. But understand that we had a lot of officers that got nothing because they're topped out on our scale, but they could leave and get anywhere from $6 to $8 an hour to go somewhere else. So I've still got all those guys that
We got to fix that.
aren't real happy. So I'm kind of dealing with that. But to answer your question about part-time, we went away from part-time officers because it was not working well. They didn't want to work when we needed them. And we have a hard time even finding a full-time guy now. And I just don't think people really want those part-time jobs. It used to be in law enforcement, you had to have 2 jobs. And that's just kind of become a thing of the past, kind of like reserves. A lot of departments used to have reserves or people who would volunteer their time. You can't find anyone to do that anymore. And so the part-time thing isn't really an option for us in my mind. It would be, I honestly don't know if we'd find anyone, and we'd have to pay quite a bit.
What are some of the things that you've had to go without?
Well-
And this is more as we explain our budgetary problems to the city, like, or just so that we can understand it. It's kind of like, look, our police had a budget for this. They had to go without it so that they could pay wages because that's the type of situation we're in.
And I wouldn't say that we're really going without. We're just trying to not buy anything, like
Sure.
just the bare minimum. Like when we just went through this whole thing of being down in staff, we tried not to use overtime. And so we were running short on shifts constantly, 2-man all the time when we should have had 4. We were trying not to use overtime. And so we've been trying to save money there, money in equipment purchases. Hey, if it's not absolutely necessary, we're not buying it. I've got a big problem going in my fuel budget right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to be way short in my fuel budget. So there's several things in there where it's like, looking at past budgets over the last few years, I'm hoping that we can do this, but it's so unknown. If I get one big case, it's going to eat my entire overtime budget, and it makes it difficult. So I wouldn't say we're really going without. We're just living really tighter than I would like to.
Okay.
Because then it also causes morale issues when guys are working short on their shifts all the time, or if we're denying their time off or things like that, then that starts causing issues with the way they feel about their jobs. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping we can make it, but like I've told you guys in the past, our compensation plan is very good. It works. We've already kind of been looking at preliminary numbers for next year, factoring in all these wage increases that are going on, and I think that it's going to fare out well for our guys. But it's the 18-year scale is a killer for us. It's out of date. And it's just not where everyone has gone to at least a 12. And that's kind of where we get in trouble. So that's something that I think we'll explore some as we do the survey and that, and just to kind of see what it looks like. Doesn't mean we can do it, but I think we need to explore it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just
Councilor Arnold?
one quick comment. Chief Shawley had mentioned something about the fire. What was the report?
What?
Your fire report?
Oh, Bill was supposed to release the annual report.
So there's some things that Bill hasn't told us. I don't even know if you know, but if there's a way we can scour a few things and talk to the department heads, make sure it's saying, hey, we've got this coming and it went through Bill and didn't get through Bill,
Okay.
kind of thing. So just a
Well,
heads up.
that's a good point, because this was one that I wasn't familiar with because it never applied to my budget, so nobody talked to me. But when they came to me, then I'm going, did we ever tell the council? Because I didn't remember it being reported. And when I asked Braden, he said it had, and I said, we got to get it in there. So that's why it's here. Jared, and I don't want to speak for him, but he uses that part-time system up there, and it's a nightmare. I mean, for what he has. But he has to do that to help fill in where we can. But I know he would prefer to have full-time guys in lieu of that, because I don't know what he got, 20-something, and how many part-times do you have?
We're down 10, so 50% right now.
Yeah. So they're seeing it too, but he chose not to implement this one, I think, financially, and also he's holding out to hopefully get something more permanent rather than rely on those part-times. But Scott really didn't have the choice. We had no choice with Woody, and Sean even had some that we had to wheel and deal on. So, but it saved us. We've nobody's left us, but they were ready to, a number of them.
And are you getting people out of the post? I mean, of course, the news is saying, you know, you're losing police officers and the mandatory vaccine and all that kind of stuff. But is their post academy full? Is your fire training full and, candidates coming out?
No, not all the academies are full. No, the problem is in the academies right now, most of them already have jobs. They've been hired by agencies, which is crazy concept. Never used to be that way. And so we don't really get many applicants coming out of the academy because a lot of them have been hired and sponsored through. And that's something we talked about. Well, maybe we could look at doing that. The problem is you're waiting probably 8 months before you actually get them out on their own. By the time they go to the academy, they go through our field training. It's difficult for us to wait that long to fill a position for our shift
I
coverage.
heard Leighton, I just heard a thing that Leighton's saying, come to us and apply. We'll train you,
Yeah.
which I'm sure it goes through the post academy.
And there's a lot more departments doing that more so than in the past. They're sponsoring people through and paying for their schooling and paying them a wage at the same time. But it is quite a wait. But it's a weird scenario with the academy. We aren't getting many applicants coming out of there just because they're already have secured jobs.
Chief Shawley.
I'll answer some stuff. 'Cause I run the fire academy still. I'm very well into the youth run fire academy for the state. And we're in the same boat PD is. Right now, we have 17 academy students that are going to finish up, and 12 of them have jobs in departments. And so the pickings are slim. My department runs a 4-person shift a day. One of those shifts is strictly filled with part-time. And we're greater than 30% short staff every month because we can't get part-timers to work. We're in the same boat PD. That's just not happening anymore. They don't need the second jobs, and they don't want to take away from family time. So we chose public safety is really interesting when I start looking at budgetary stuff. I 100% chose to back way down because Scott needs his stuff fixed now. He's in far worse times than I am, and so he needed that. We're on the heels. We generally fire Falls PD 2 or 3 years, and we're seeing that already too. So, but my system's broke, so I just don't have the staff using part-time anymore. So it's a antiquated concept, and everybody's going away from it. We're kind of fires now transition like PD did away from reserves and part-time because they just can't get them to work. So.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I had on that.
Okay.
If you had more questions. Way more than I was going to give, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure you knew about it, and that's
good.
moving,
Yeah, thanks
so.
for keeping us informed. We do need to know that. So, all right, move on to consent items. Consideration to approve meeting minutes from October 19th, 2021 council work session and October 19th, 2021 council meeting. Are any corrections or changes to the meeting minutes?
Just the date.
Just a change in the date on the work session. Okay. If there are none, then a motion would be in order.
Move to approve
Consent items.
consent item.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Looks like that passes unanimously. We'll now move on to action items, section G. With the approval of the council, we're going to switch the order of this just slightly. We're going to go to item 2A first. Consideration of ordinance 938 for proposed Riverdale City Center 6 subdivision amendment, property located at 4171 South Riverdale Road. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Council, appreciate it. Riverdale Center North, like you said, is the applicant. They're represented tonight by AWA Engineering, who Jake Tate is present on behalf of the engineering firm and Riverdale Center North's interest. This is for, again, like you stated, the Riverdale, Riverdale Center 6 subdivision. Its amendment, like I stated in the work session, this matter came before for the council for an original subdivision a couple months ago when it was a 3-lot subdivision, one of the pads being the Dutch Bros site, which is now operating. Since that time, the applicant group has decided that they would rather pursue a 2-lot subdivision and therefore need to be amended in order to accommodate a future site plan, which was on tonight's agenda, but obviously is going to be tabled for the purposes of tonight. So that will be forthcoming. That being said, the city engineer has reviewed the subdivision plat that's in your packet. It's on page 52, I think, in your packet if you want to scroll the way down to it. He has no issues with it. He recommends approval of it as it's been provided. I have no issues with it myself, and none of the department heads have any issues. The recommendation is to approve the subdivision plat, amended subdivision plat as submitted. Also, it did come before the Planning Commission previously on that August 10th, 2021 date that's found in your executive summary, and they recommended for approval at that time. So with that, I would defer to the council if you have any questions for me and or the applicant. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 938 as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? It's an ordinance, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, looks like that passes unanimously. Okay, we are going to not do item 2B. We're going to
Do we need to table that, or is
do
it?
we need to table that or just not?
You know, I was thinking about that. It might not be a bad idea if we table it just in general. It will be drastically different when it comes back, but at least it's on an agenda. Just table it for an indefinite amount of time because I'm not exactly sure when we'll have it back, but it shouldn't be too long. So I'd just table it, I think.
All right, we need a motion to table item 2B.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously as well. We'll now move to action item number 1. This is a discussion and consideration. Thanks, Mr. Tate. Discussion and consideration of the disposition of property owned by Riverdale City located on 1570 West Ritter Drive. There's 2 pieces. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. As I discussed previous to coming in here, this is the old Howell property that we purchased to widen that road. And then there's another sliver there that we had obtained. Where did we get that other piece? I can't remember where that came from, but
It was in order to accommodate the right-of-way that we needed along that sliver. Ironically, the whole sliver was part of it just for the little bit of right-of-way we needed for
that's right.
the curb gutter sidewalk.
And so anyway, we have those 2 pieces of property lingering out there. And when we came in a few months ago and asked you to surplus that, I indicated at that point that we would come back to you at some point in time, and that's what we're doing. We just need some further direction or some authorization to start looking at some of the options we have. We currently have a potential buyer and development that could go in there, but this piece plays a pretty important role, and it would be mandatory that they obtain this, I think, to make it work as they've currently proposed it to us. So our thoughts were is to get it in, and we really need to rezone too and get it in conformance with what it should be. I think it's currently ag, isn't it, Mike?
Currently, it's ag. The rezone request would be for it to be R16, so we as a city could sponsor that if the council wanted to direct us to do so with the planning commission, and or if you didn't feel comfortable doing that, we could obviously communicate that to anybody that we would sell it to. In either case, the surrounding zoning is R-1-6.
So that's what we would propose, is that you allow us to move forward on the rezone and obtaining some more information so we know the value. And so we're kind of looking at what we would be asking as part of a development.
Has the sliver already been declared a surplus?
I'd have to go back and look at that. I don't know if we included that in the...
I
Well,
want
if-
to say I think it is, but I don't 100% know, but I think it is.
I think every time we've talked about it, it's been the 2 pieces of
Yes.
property.
That's what I believe too.
We'll go back and double check that. If it wasn't done when we did the other one, we'll bring that in as well. But one way or another, they need to go. They service no purpose other than we would still have to, like on the legal descriptions, make sure that we preserve our right of way. So this would be adjusted slightly to make sure that we owned all of Ritter Drive that we have there. But for the most part, it would be both of those pieces. It's just land that we won't use realistically at this point. We bought that to widen Ritter, and that's already occurred. So at this point, it's just extra that we don't, and they need it a whole lot more than we do. So
Any questions or comments for Mr. Brooks?
Surplus, do we have to auction it or can we sell it?
We have a number of options there that we can look at, and that's kind of what we'd look and see what's in the best interest of the city, whether we would sell that outright. I mean, obviously, if they had the funds and they could come in and buy it, that would be our first choice because it's clean and it's easy and we're out of it, you know. But if not, we may have to work it into the cost of the development, things like that, where we recovered it after that. We just need authority to do it, so.
Does it increase the value to have it as an R16?
It'd be more than an ag, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be prudent to do the zone.
Yeah, and I think we could point that out to the appraiser that this would eventually be. I mean, if we had the authority to do it now, we could let him know and he could appraise it at that level. Because I mean, ag land is taxed a lot differently, so I think the R16 would be more.
Do we pay property tax
No,
as a city?
no.
So, because, I mean, honestly, the zoning's irrelevant, because it's the property going into a development and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So what it's zoned is, that we know the potential of what it is. So the zoning, but what are the Bairds? Have they said anything about what they're planning on doing with their section on the end there?
Well, the development that came in encompassed all that, if I recall correctly, on that piece. It was that whole.
He's talking about that one.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
just on the corner.
Yeah, but I think that was also still part of that consideration because of their ingress and egress. They had some.
What I understand with the Baird property is she's not interested in selling. They have a son, her and her husband do, and he would acquire it and maybe put a home on it. But even he doesn't have interest in selling. That's how I've had to explain to me. I think Sean is one that explained that to me.
Okay.
Is that
So
what the red house, is that on the?
it's actually just a big vacant
There's
field
a
right
white
now, right on the
truck
corner.
and a
It's
white
it's not
truck
numbered.
and there's like
pretty
a
large.
garage type thing, but it's just a vacant lot
Yeah.
right on the corner. So they have a big.
And it kind of is lower than this
Yeah,
property. It kind of
okay.
slopes down in a way, two directions, kind of to
Right.
the east and to the north.
It's got some weird topography.
But my understanding is the family has no interest in doing anything with it, maybe except for building a home for the son when he's ready to do so.
Okay. So, then just one other question is, so this came through from the Barlows, the Polsons, and somebody else.
That's that's correct.
And is this gonna turn into another paper lot situation like the Coleman subdivision did, where they, like, hey, we put this conglomerate of properties together and then we're gonna paper lot it and sell it out to somebody and then we're gonna get whatever, I think, cause what you said, what'd you say, plan for the worst thing that can happen in an R16?
Yeah, you do have to plan for the worst. I don't know the answer to that. Ironically, Josh Yates is present with us tonight, right in front. If you I don't know what his thoughts are on that. I don't. Again, I'm speaking from what I've heard conversations with that group. I believe it's their interest to develop the lots themselves. That's my understanding. And talking to Mr. Staten, who's doing some of the engineering designs for their project. But beyond that, I'm not sure. If it was appropriate to do so, I suppose Mr. Yates might be able to come up and answer that as well, if you would either like him to, or if
And
that's not
that's
appropriate.
fine. I was just, I guess I'm.
But
looking at
that's-
how- Cause Mike,
Yeah.
Staten, when he came in and said, oh yeah, if we have this retention pond, then we can have lots that are 4,000 square feet
Yeah.
and maximize this. Well, the retention pond probably is gonna end up on the property that we own. So if anything, we have control over some of that stuff. So, I would like to see some stipulations on the sale if we can, to keep
And
it from being a project place.
and
you know?
that would be something we'd end up doing
terms,
through
I
a
think.
development
Sure.
agreement if we had to protect our interest on that. So
But could we do a development agreement on the sale?
Could you do terms of the agreement? Is what he's wondering. If you did like a Repsi, you can make terms. On
Yeah,
the
I think
agreement.
so.
I think you
So we-
could too.
So we could say, based on the
I
property,
think you could.
with any transfers that the property may go through, all lots are gonna stay at 6,000 square feet or something like that in the subdivision, if you buy this property, if it's incorporated in this deal.
yeah, I mean that's not that uncommon in a development agreement on certain things. If we all have a meeting of the minds and we all agree, then that contract becomes more binding than just a straight "here you go, good luck" kind of thing. So
Hope you
Right.
do
right,
whatever.
yeah. So yeah, that's something we could draft that up and make sure we're tied that down.
That's what I would like to see. I think we should move it for sure. Whoever ends up buying it, whether, even if it's the the Bairds add to their property or whatever, whoever ends up buying it. But whoever buys it, we should kind of protect the interests of the road and how many ingress egress points there are in it and stuff like that, especially if it's coming together as one development.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, we don't know for sure, but the early designs and stuff that we saw they fit, and I think it was something you guys would be comfortable with. So it looked good. It really did, and they'd done a nice job with it. So that's kind of why we thought maybe we really need to push this through, because this could work. So
And I know this is kind of being right there by it, but what's the plan that we're seeing with the off ramp? Have we heard any timing on the off ramp that's going by there? So people understand.
That is part of the 5600 project, that ramping. I don't know as far as timelines. I know all their energy right now is at that Roy, I guess you call it Roy Gate. I don't like that term myself, but the base gate there. Yeah, that whole area, that's where a lot of their energy is right now starting the project. Now, could it take a couple of years to come and connect onto Riverdale Road? It could. I don't think it's a quick project. I think this is probably an 18-month project, to be honest with you. It's going to be a pretty big project.
Because I know when they were talking about the Roy Gate and 5600 and all that kind of stuff, they were saying 2025.
Yeah.
But now they've knocked down Denny's or So Delicious.
Yeah, and
original
that's where a
building.
lot of the energy is right now.
So to go down 5600, do you think will be the primary focus?
That they'll probably start. Yeah, this is my opinion based on what I'm seeing. They'll probably start right there by the Innovation Center, work their way down, continue down 5600, get that all in place, and then start working on the overpass maybe while that's continuing forward, and start flying this direction towards Riverdale Road. That's what I suspect will happen. So I suspect probably in the spring, once it thaws out, they'll start to do some of that construction, get the compaction going, start to build that overpass so it can start to settle and do what it needs to do to fly over towards
I think
Riverdale
that'll
Road.
have a huge effect on that development right there, because right now Freeway Park Drive is just a road.
Yeah.
You start putting an off ramp above it or something like that, and pretty soon you're.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty.
Once-
It's going to be pretty narrow. That off ramp will fly kind of above it. It'll be graded up, and it'll almost look like a big tall wall. Yeah, and then Freeway Park Drive will continue on below it. It's kind of, so they're going to be a little separated.
So it's not going to be lifted like a spaghetti bowl or something like that. It's just-
No, it'll be there, but it'll kind of be built up and kind of fly, so it's at the same elevation and grade to hit Riverdale Road. And then there will be a little separation of real estate between Freeway Park Drive and where that off ramp comes.
Oh, yeah, I pictured raised, you know what I mean? I mean, on pillars, but it's just going to be a berm on a berm.
Kind of more so land mass.
Okay.
It'll rise, yeah. So you'll come off the freeway to kind of a similar grade,
Yeah.
And where the I-15 goes down like this, it'll continue on,
Okay.
and then hook into.
But it's
Riverdale
built on
Road.
land, not on pillars.
More so that it'll be a combination probably of both. I would say look at the engineering documents, you get a better feel for it. But it's kind of both. It's a system. In some cases pillar, and then some cases earthwork to eventually hit the same elevation at Riverdale Road.
Okay, that won't affect that development as much as I thought it would.
Yeah, it'll be more inside to the west of Freeway Park. But what it will affect is obviously even the patterns getting on and off of Freeway Park Drive will be impacted, and that's going to change how people do and don't drive. Some people may not like flying up and over and coming down to that intersection at the Innovation Center just to get onto 5600. They may find completely different avenues with Riverdale Road to get to some of their places because maybe it feels a little less convenient. I don't know. It may change some patterns.
But the location is valuable just because of where it's at. I mean, people could live there and almost walk to Grumman up there. I mean, you're that close, so I don't think they'll have any problem getting rid of them.
So this is an action item where but it's also listed as a discussion.
And we put a consideration on there for disposal, or we just anything you'd give us. I mean, ideally, we'd like to move forward, including entertaining offers for the purchase of it. But first, we've got to get that appraised, so we know what we're dealing with, because we don't know at this point, with the prices of land and things. But just permission to move forward on this and start entertaining different offers and
that would be
options.
through a consensus.
And to add to that, if you'll just humor me for a minute, to find out what direction you want to go with the rezone. Obviously, if you're comfortable with us pursuing the rezone, then I could start with the planning commission. But if you want us to kind of wait and let the appraisal get done, then clearly we can sit on it. So kind of some timing direction that way as well, maybe.
We're not paying the property tax. I don't see the ones. I mean, one or the other, whatever you prefer.
What makes it more
Better for you.
appealing, or I don't know what
On the
makes
rezone?
what makes it better for us?
I think just the price more than anything, that our selling price, because it's there, and a developer's confident in knowing that they're not going to buy that chunk and then not be able to get that rezoned. Even
Well,
though
having
that
it
would
rezoned
happen,
is
but
better.
that would be the
for
biggest
us.
bonus, I think, for a
Everybody kinda agree with
developer.
that? Yeah, Councilor
You know,
Stevens.
having it consistent with the surrounding is advantageous for anybody looking at it. You know, it's like, you know, there's no advantage to not rezoning it, and so it's you know, in the developer agreement, all that kind of stuff. That's just that's an overbearing control mechanism. Because you know you only have really one party that's really got a vested interest in going after it, and if you're trying, I'm talking, and if you're trying
Sure you
to,
are.
and if you're trying to, you know, be heavy-handed, that's a good way to do it. But you know, if you're looking for direction, you know, KISS rule, simple, make it consistent, get a value on it. And then if we want to list it or take bids or accept an offer, whatever, we have that latitude. But having it consistent is really where it needs to be.
And that's kind of where we were leaning. We just thought it would be a little bit better where it fit in and everything was the same, and then we could move forward. But we'll do whatever. We just need a direction because it's just sitting there for now, and we can't do anything. So
Do you have something?
How many square feet is it?
about 0.23
0.2
for
0.23.
the house. Now, yeah, but that doesn't include the piece we would chop off, so it's even smaller than that. And then the other piece was 0.038 or something like
Okay.
that. So
So the R16, it's a single family lot. Somebody could buy that lot and build a house right there.
In the A1, no. If it was rezoned to R16, minimum 6,000 square feet, yes. But that's with the right of way obviously being removed that we've taken.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just what I'm saying is, you put it into R16, it's a single family lot. So it's not gonna be for the development. You rezone it to R16, you have anybody that's looking to build a house
Yeah, 6,000 square
and
feet.
for that lot. So it's not a single party, anything.
Is that a risk? Do we need to worry about that? Somebody coming and buying it and saying, I'm going to build a house right here?
it's all, if a single party did,
That could
That
really
would be a
screw up the
concern, yeah.
developers for
Right.
the other part,
If a
right?
single party comes in and says, I'll buy it for 125, and it doesn't make sense for the developer to do it for 125, and we sell it, then we're open to a lawsuit to somebody saying you're favoring one person over another to enrich parties. And
yeah, but I don't know that we're obligated to sell to anybody. You know, I mean, we can always bring it back in because if it's not in the best interest, that's what the main consideration is. Is it in the best interest of the city? And that wouldn't be. So if somebody came in and said that, we'd probably decline it for that reason because that could screw everything up. And then we got a huge vacant lot up there for the next 15 years, which is not what we want. So
Okay.
although they've stacked the wood really nice,
You call it a huge?
they've done a lot of.
Huge vacant lot. Okay, so it sounds like we're kind of on board to give you guys direction to go ahead and pursue a rezone and start looking at getting bids and stuff. Is everybody kind of on board with that? It looks like.
and start entertaining offers. That, I mean, we would obviously come back to you before we accept something.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear what they've got to say. Cause
Yeah, I think we all want it sold, and we want to do whatever's best to get that on the.
Can we get just a consensus vote on it, just so we've got
Consensus,
that on
everybody in
record?
favor? Aye. Looks like everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and I know they will too.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the section H. Any comments from the city council tonight? How about the city staff? All right. If there's none,
I'll just quickly, just a couple little quick things. We did hear from the mayor and stuff. Some of you we updated beforehand. He is making progress. I don't think he's that close to getting back, but his wife did say he was getting better, and he's indicated that to us as well. So he is making progress, but realistically, he's still got a battle ahead of him. We know that. So, but he has been communicating a little bit and getting us some emails and different things. So that's been a good sign. And our veterans program I'm waiting for a final cut on that any time. So that will be ready. We got that all filmed last week and stuff, and that'll be a nice little thing. You guys will want to see that when it's done. So we're kind of excited about that too. There's a little special part in there that we've done a little bit different this year. So it'll be good when it's done. But we'll let you know, and it'll be out, and we'll have it available to you. So that's all I had.
Okay. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Your phone's going off just in time. Did you plan?